Hi, Rebecca. Paul Pajak in the fisheries program. I think we've probably had parallel careers. It seems like we've woven our way through all the same initiatives. But as you were summarizing, the Blue Ways initiative, it was really reminiscent for people who've been around for a while. The whole American Heritage Rivers initiative, a lot of the same recurring interdisciplinary themes, landscape level. I guess as you sort of flip through the folders of that kind of history, as you strategize moving forward, um, what would you say are sort of the salient pieces of the Blue Wave strategy that would remain the same? And maybe what do you see as maybe some of the biggest strategies that we need to pursue, especially in light of the economy and the shortage of resources, to create what's that big value-added strategy that we need out there, I guess, to build on what worked with the American Heritage Rivers, but what we need to do, because obviously it's not around anymore.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually was fairly involved in American Heritage Rivers, so I do know that story. Yeah, there's some similarities, but I think there are a lot of differences as well. I would, when I said back to the future in terms of the description of the National Blueway System, I was really thinking about sort of every 40 years, every generation, we seem to have a real push on watersheds. Whether it's river basin commissions or, we sort of rediscover this idea of watersheds, every generation, and realize how powerful that concept is from a strategic point of view. So I would say that the key elements, I've mentioned some of them already, but it's, the general idea is that when we design our built environment in ways that either mimic natural systems and natural forces or work with the natural systems, we're going to have a better result. It's going to be a better use of scarce resources. It might cost more in the beginning, but it's going to be more flexible and more resilient and sustainable, and so these solutions are going to have better value to taxpayers, particularly now that we're facing more frequent extreme weather conditions, whether that's too much rain or not enough. I think systems that work with the natural dynamics are going to be more flexible. I am familiar with work that's being done in Philadelphia, and they're attacking they've got a combined sewer overflow problem there, and they were talking about spending $3 billion to put in a deep tunnel, as was done in Chicago. By the way, the Chicago tunnel overflowed the first time it rained there because they had a big event and their engineers hadn't planned on that. But instead of going for $3 billion in a deep tunnel, which the mayor, they're going for a green infrastructure, a natural infrastructure. It's going to cost them $1 billion, so they're going to have $2 billion to spend on teachers and firemen and police. And as the mayor said, you really can't tailgate on a deep tunnel. They're going to have a much more livable community, and so there's multiple benefits that come from these natural approaches. So that to me, that the idea of a Blueway system is a system that as I said, it's on the watershed level. It looks at the whole river. It integrates land and water in a way that respects and works with the natural forces. It's about bringing communities together because these are long-term efforts and multi-party efforts, and hopefully we can make it a sufficiently prestigious award that it'll be worth something to the communities that are able to come together. One of the things that we were talking about is having a Blue Ways Award at 3 stages: at the vision stage, and then the plan stage, and then the implementation stage. So recognizing that you can't get to things like this in a short amount of time, you first have to bring the entire watershed together around a vision. And why is that vision going to be attractive to parts of the community that maybe don't care about fish and wildlife habitat, but maybe do care a lot about how much it costs to provide sanitary and storm sewer services. So that's not a very crisp answer to your question, but it's sort of the direction that I think we need to head. Yeah.
Anyone else? Liz.
Hi, I'm Liz. Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm Liz Dawson. I'm actually in the engineering group here, but I just had a general thought. It just seems like Blue Way is a very catchy name for this whole thing, and I just wanted to compliment you or whoever thought of that. I think it's really great, and I hope that that helps you with getting this thing mobilized.
Liz? Yeah, thanks, Liz. I don't think I'm going to claim credit for it. I think it's a lot of people contributed to the idea of that name. But I do think that it's a catchy name, and I think if we're going to do things like large landscapes, that's a mouthful. So we need a catchy name, and maybe Blue Ways and Greenways. I don't know, but I hope something like that will start to mean something to the public as years go by.
Thank you. I'm Megan Nagel. I'm with Science Applications. And so speaking of the public, and I think you've kind of, for me, laid out my general question, which is, what is a Blue Way? So we talked about vision and planning and implementation. But if we're talking to the public about a Blue Way, which is a great name, and it's what's the simplest way for me to explain to like my parents or my neighbor why it's so exciting that we have the Connecticut River as the first Blue Way in the country?
Well, I mean, I think maybe the simplest way for the average person to think about it is it's a river from source to sea, from headwaters to, I mean, not all rivers flow to the sea, obviously, but source to sea is, I think, a simple way to think about it. So it's the entire river, the whole river, and its watershed. That's what a Blue Way is. And the other things that are critical to getting this designation is that it's a partnership of all the stakeholders within the watershed coming together to start to create integrated land and water management, to have a healthy river system. So I think the first part of that is probably the shortest piece, but then to get beyond that, some of those other aspects are important, and hopefully that will suffice for you.
Yes, thank you.
It was fun at the Connecticut River dedication. There were so many people there from different backgrounds and different interests, and so it was really fun to be able to even see that initial event catch so many people, whether they were there for the paddling or the clean water or for conservation or restoration, or they were a local business owner that wanted to be able to use that as a marketing tool to bring more people in or contributing towards a cleaner. It was really fun. So I think we can really communicate that in different ways depending on our audiences too. So.
I have another comment, and something you said a minute ago, the intersection between, say, the Northern Forest Landscape Plan and the Connecticut River, and the fact that 4 states identified the Connecticut River as part of their 50-state projects. One of the things that's exciting to me is that you've recognized the Connecticut River first, and that's very significant because here in the Northeast, I think we have a very different kind of conservation solution necessary, and you alluded to it a minute ago when you're talking about communities, and Megan was talking about it a little bit, this idea that we have small, broken up landscapes that are pretty messy to deal with in the long term for conservation solutions, but it's necessary to deal with it that way if we're going to get anything done. So we've through things like the Connie Refuge and many other collaborative projects going on in the Northeast, we've kind of gone at it from that angle of involving lots of communities, lots of private landowners, lots of incentives, and big vision. and tried to assemble a conservation solution in that light. That's very different from some Western states that have huge federal ownerships or large ranches or opportunities that are very different than we have here in the East. So it's very exciting for me that you've recognized the Northeast in kind of leading an effort like this because it's so central to so many of the conservation solutions that we have to put on the ground here. So thank you.
For giving us the chance to learn from you.
Probably have time for maybe one more question, comment. Everybody good? Well, this is, again, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for taking time with us. These are excellent, what we call initiatives, but I hope they're not initiatives. I hope they are long-standing. I hope they're a way of doing business from here out into the future. And I've had the pleasure of being with the Secretary the last couple of weeks at several events, and each time he says, now how are we going to keep this around, even when I'm long gone? How is this going to be a legacy that we leave? And so I ask all of you to think about that. These are really important efforts, and it does bring attention finally. We're all focused at this large landscape level approach to conservation, and we have so many different constituents that we serve in our role as Fish and Wildlife Service employees. And I think there's probably multiple ways of answering that question. How do we leave this legacy? But each and every one of you, no matter what program you're in, no matter what pay grade you're in, all have a role in the Fish and Wildlife Service towards this mission and leaving this legacy. And this is just one aspect. But between blueways and greenways and large landscape conservation, we all can be leaving the legacy by either being the communicators or getting our hands and feet dirty in the dirt, doing the actual work, or whether it's letting a contractor helping get IT services done so folks can get the message out. I mean, every one of us play a role. So I ask each and every one of you to think, how do we leave the legacy? How do we each play an important part in being members of the Blue Way Initiative or the Blue Way the Rivers Initiative, or how are we all going to keep America's great outdoors alive? So thank you very much for being here. It's an absolute pleasure, and thank you all for your time today. It's great.